Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today we are featuring a very gigantic action figure. If you haven't guessed already, this is the new DC Multiverse Swamp Thing, as produced by McFarlane Toys. Okay, today is December 22nd, 2021. And I received the figure yesterday. I pre-ordered it on Amazon. It was $39. And when I got the box in the mail, it was gigantic. I didn't expect the box to be this large, or the action figure to be this large. The shipping box was like, I thought at first it was like an X box or something. I'm like, what is this? And then when I opened it up, I was so surprised that Swamp Thing was actually this large. Like, I knew it was a larger figure just by the price point. But I never knew it was going to be so big that it would not even fit underneath my camera, as you can see here. If I'd like compare it, the size of the box. Let me grab a figure real quick. Okay, so here's a standard DC Multiverse McFarlane figure. This is Batman Beyond, and this is the standard sized box. This isn't in one of the deluxe boxes for like the Build-A-Figure. So, I mean, we've all handled one of these. It's a reasonable sized box. And then you compare it with Swamp Thing, and the box is enormous. The action figure is enormous. It's crazy. I didn't think the figure would be this big. I want to see this box. It's comparable, if not maybe the same size as the box as you're getting with like maybe Steppenwolf or Darkseid. But yeah, this is a gigantic figure. For some reason, I thought Swamp Thing would probably borderline on the size of like Dark Knight's Metal Devastator. But nah, this is a huge figure. The box alone is like maybe 3 or 4 times the size of this guy here. Alright, so so this is going to be hard for my camera to focus just because the box is gigantic. So real quick, let's go over the box. As you can see, it's the usual color scheme that you expect from the McFarlane Multiverse line. It's that black box with the blue cardboard insert. If you look through the box, there's an action figure stand. And it appears to be the standard action figure stand that you get with the normal figures. I don't know how practical that is with an action figure this large. But I don't know, we'll see. There's also the trading card behind them back there. You kind of make out this dark spot over here. That's the trading card. He comes with an extra hand right here, so you can like hand swap. This is like his weapon appendage. On the side, this is Swamp Thing as he's portrayed in DC Rebirth. On the back of the box, there's some fig photography. You can kind of make it out right there. Yeah, it's a pretty cool image. He kind of shows how he kind of blends in with the swamp and the forest. Yeah, this is a cool photo. Does a good job of like highlighting all the detail on them, all the foliage. And other figures that are out, we have the Sean Gordon Murphy Bat Cycle. We have Shriek, King Shazam, and Etrigan the Demon. And as a side note, if you're watching this video today, I was on Amazon last night, and I want to say the Demon and King Shazam, they might be on sale on Amazon. So you might want to look into that. I think they're like $9 each, but I'm not sure if that was a limited time deal or what. So if you don't have King Shazam or Etrigan, you might want to look into that. Okay, so we're gonna open this guy up, and hopefully it'll be a better, easier job of getting him under the camera. Yeah, so I was really surprised at the size of this guy. For some reason, I knew he'd be big, but I didn't think he'd be like this big. All right, let's get this into focus. All right, so first impressions of Swamp Thing while he's still in the tray. I want to say my first thoughts was beyond impressed. Like, this is a great action figure in the sense that they really made use of his size in terms of the amount of detail they could put on him, and I am just blown away. I've never seen anything this crazy looking, like, you know, that wasn't a statue. Like, there's always those kind of collectibles, you know, there might be statues of like Batman or like Superman, you know, I'm talking about the larger like premium collectibles that might be about, you know, anywhere between 12 inches to like 18 inches, and then you know, they always like command really high prices. You know, they could be anywhere from like, you know, $200 to like $600, and those things look beautiful. And not that this thing's like worth $600, but I mean, just in terms of like the amount of detailing on it, it kind of like rivals those larger premium collectible statues that you might see in the stores. It's crazy. I'm excited to take them out and take a look at them. But yeah, check out the amount of detail on here. It's amazing. Now, with this amount of detail, I'm not sure if an action figure like this is like sculpted out traditionally by hand with the prototype, or if there is no like physical prototype and it's done strictly on computer. Just because I can't imagine, you know, anyone designing something like this on a computer and getting this much detail out of it. This really feels like, to me, it's something that might have been done and sculpted out by hand. Especially since so much of it is like asymmetrical in its design. So yeah, we have the giant figure here. We have a weapon appendage. It's kind of like the semblance of a blade. The action figure stands underneath. As I mentioned before, I don't know how practical a small stand like that is for an action figure this big. Okay, so if you're a collector who likes to take things out of the box and put them back in the box, this is a word of caution. There's a lot of tape holding the plastic tray onto the cardboard insert. So if you're one of those people that want to kind of, if you're kind of like me and you want to kind of preserve it, just kind of be careful. Alright, so as opposed to the other figures that have those plastic ties, this guy has just like a giant twist tie on the back holding them in. I'm just going to cut this off. And then we have his little appendage here for hand swapping. And let's get this guy in a neutral pose. Wow, this is an amazing action figure. This thing is awesome. I'm going to say it right now, for me anyways, this might be my action figure of the year for 2021. Yeah, the sheer size of it is crazy. Alright, so as you can see here, he doesn't even fit entirely underneath my camera. Let me get a ruler so we can see how tall he is. All right, here's a ruler. You're looking at an action figure that's about all right, so this guy, if I'm measuring him correctly, he's roughly about a hair under 11 inches. So yeah, this is a gigantic action figure. So you know, I believe the standard McFarlane Multiverse figure, it might average anywhere between like 7 to 7.5 inches. This guy is gigantic at nearly 11 inches tall. So it's enormous. The sculpting is, I can't say enough. The sculpting is beautiful. Here's that little appendage that he comes with. So this is for a hand swap. You can swap out his hand, and then in place of his hand, you could give him this, you know, blade that's made of foliage. So that's kind of cool. The detail on this also likewise is amazing. It's the sculpting in proportions of the details is consistent with what's going on here, as is the paint application. So it's not like, you know, once you swap this out, it doesn't feel disjointed. It feels very natural and almost it would take on the appearance of almost being seamless, since there's so much detail going on here, and it's very organic. You know, no pun intended with this guy being made of vegetation, but wow, that's amazing. The point on here, it's all right. It's a little bit, it's not super sharp, but you know, I'm sure you can still do some serious damage and poke someone's eye out with this. But it's cool. You can see leaves, you can see all sorts of moss, plant roots, and this is also articulated. As you can see here, there's a joint. So this is the actual wrist joint, and it feels ratcheted, which is nice. You can hear the ratchet. Yeah, so it's cool that it's ratcheted. All right, we're going to set this aside for now. All right, let's take a look at the main event. And as you can see, this is a heavy action figure. It left an impression on my display mat right here. So that's how heavy this guy is. So let's get a good look at this guy. Yeah, so he has red eyes with some dark shading around him. He kind of has that trademark, I don't know how to describe his face, but it's kind of like that. It's not like a mask, but it's kind of how the upper part of his face kind of like folds over the bottom half, and it kind of creates that look around his mouth. Yeah, the sculpting is amazing. As you can see here, there's all sorts of like foliage. There's like vines. There's moss. It almost takes on the appearance of like vein work. He has a lot of leaves on one side. I love the fact that his design is asymmetrical, so it's like different on each half. You know, there's almost like the appearance of bark on this shoulder here. One thing that kind of bothers me a little is that as much as they cover him up, you know, there's this one part that's kind of exposed right there. And this looks more just like plain green plastic, you know, even though there is a slight texture to it. I would have appreciated it if they just covered this guy entirely on this side, like how they did over here. Oh no, I take it back. There's an exposed area here also. But I'm guessing that's more so for the butterfly joint. Yeah, you get some more roots and vines over here. Same with the back. He kind of has a spine, as you can see right there. More leaves. He has a mossy butt. Yeah, there's something very disgusting yet beautiful about Swamp Thing and his appearance. More vines. Now, I thought a really cool add-on accessory that would have been nice and almost funny with this action figure is if they kind of gave him tiny peg holes on like his shoulder, and then he could put like little birds on top of it. I thought that'd be kind of cute. Just because, it's Swamp Thing, he's kind of like the embodiment of nature. And I thought it'd be fun if they did something, cute like that, like as a joke, like maybe like a small bird's nest, or just like a small thing where you could like, put on little tiny animals on them. But yeah, amazing action figure. You're looking at something that's 11 inches tall. And again, here's a quick size comparison of him next to, this is a somewhat standard size McFarlane Multiverse figure. This is Batman Beyond. And as you can see, if they were standing toe to toe, Batman Beyond barely comes up to his waist. It's gigantic. It's ridiculous how large this figure is. And I'm going to tell you right now, for the price point for $39, it's very reasonable. I think this isn't overpriced at all. If anything, I think you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with this guy. But I'm kind of conflicted because at the same time, as awesome as he is large, there's a part of me that kind of feels like for some collectors, his size might be an issue. As I stated previously, I thought this action figure would fall more in line with like something as big as some of the Build-A-Figures, like the slightly larger ones, like I think this guy's taller than King Shark, but I just imagined in my head he was going to be the size of Dark Knight's Metal Devastator. And that's a character that kind of looks like Doomsday, and you might have seen the 2-pack like at stores. That's a slightly bigger figure. It's a lot bulkier, a lot heavier, and that figure is definitely well under 11 inches. This guy, it's like I said, the box and the size of him kind of reminds me of like Steppenwolf or Darkseid. But the reason why I say it might be an issue with some collectors is that, especially if you're setting up a display shelf and you want to like arrange, all the good guys together, this guy might, depending on how spaced out your shelves are, this guy might be an issue up trying to put on display. Unless you have a D-Tolf with a lot of headroom. Yeah, so I think it's great that he's gigantic, but there's a part of me that kind of wishes he was a little bit shorter. But at the same time, it's Swamp Thing. His powers, he can actually enlarge his size. He can even make himself smaller. And I kind of wonder that if this was a smaller figure, if we'd get his this crazy amount of detail. Yeah, very impressed. This is nuts. For me, considering this to be like, for me to be like at least a close contender for action figure of the year, for me, it's mostly because I have a sentimental attachment to Swamp Thing. The sculpt, I'm a big sucker for really good sculpting, and this guy's sculpting is amazing. I've never seen an action figure this well done in terms of trying to recreate that like swampy foliage kind of look. And we've gotten figures like that in the past. There's been a couple of Marvel Legends Man-Things. DC Collectibles, they've produced a couple of Swamp Thing figures over the years. All right, let's take a look at his articulation. His head rotates left and right. In terms of looking up and down, you can look up that much. You can look down that much. He has a cut underneath his chest line, and it's right here. It's kind of well hidden. I'm not sure if it rotates or not. All right, so you can see the cut right there. It's really stiff. I don't want to force it. Yeah, if this thing moves, it's not moving on my action figure. So I don't want to force it, but just know that there's something here, and it kind of, there is some play in there, but I'm not sure if it's just locked in place or if it's the pieces are seized together. He has that kind of like, I call it a rubber diaper. He has that rubber diaper that all the DC Multiverse figures have. So it's very pliable, it's very flexible, and due to the nature of the sculpt of the character, it just blends in really well. Excuse me, just losing my voice. Yeah, so this part, this blends in really... Oh God, my voice is like going nuts. Alright, so hopefully I got my voice back. Yeah, so these videos, like when I talk for long periods of time, my voice just gets shot. Alright, so I got my voice back. As I mentioned earlier, he's articulated at the waist. I'm not sure about this ab crunch right there. Like I said, it feels like it's kind of, you can see the break right there, but it's kind of tight. So I don't know what's going on. But at least for his waist, there's some crunch forward, some movement back. It's that rubber diaper, and it just blends in seamlessly with the rest of them, just because of the nature of the sculpting. It's not too gappy right there. You know, you could kind of see it, but for the most part, if you're looking at this guy head on, it's not going to be an issue. In terms of leg articulation, you could kick up about that high. You can kick out, and it feels ratcheted, and the engineering underneath looks to be the same as like the standard McFarlane Multiverse stuff. So I don't know if this is a problem, you know, with this much of the joints being exposed, but I can't imagine anyone displaying the figure, you know, on their shelf like this, or trying to do like a high kick. There is no thigh swivel. You know, if anything, you can just kind of twist the thigh slightly like that. It looks like he has double jointed knees. You can see the pins there and there. He has ankle articulation and toe articulation. He has a tiny peg here for the action figure stand. Without the stand, I want to see if this guy stands up pretty well. He is kind of heavy, so that might be an issue. I'm trying to see if I can get him to stand up right. Yeah, he can stand all right. I'm not sure if this is going to be one of those figures that, you know, over time the joints loosen up and if he'll start to like lean over because he's so heavy. One option, if you don't want to use the action figure stand with the tiny peg, is that if you go to like a hobby shop, they always have those like kind of like doll stands. And something like that might, you know, work for this action figure just because it's so gigantic. But he does stand on his own. In terms of the arm articulation, he has that socket butterfly joint. I think that's what it is. Does it move? All right, so if it's supposed to move, it's not moving on my action figure. It just feels like it might be tight. Oh, I got it. All right, so it's slight. There's some slight movement. If you look right here, it doesn't want to move all the way. All right, that's as much as I can get out of that one. The one over here is really tight. Doesn't want to move. It moves a little bit. Very tight also. He has a bicep cut right there, so there's supposed to be bicep swivel, but maybe I can get this one to move. Alright, yeah, there's bicep swivel, as you can see right there. It's very tight. It looks like you might only have... I can't tell if he has double jointed elbows or single jointed. It might just be single. Yeah, I think this... Unless I can't see it, I think this guy might only be single jointed for the elbow. Yeah, this guy might just have single jointed elbows. I can't see the second pin. But that's alright. I mean, this guy's gigantic. I think that's forgivable. His wrists are articulated. They rotate and they could come in. It's ratcheted. I love how his hands are kind of splayed out like this. I would have appreciated it if they gave us maybe another set of hands where he actually had closed fists. So yeah, amazing action figure. It's gigantic. It falls a little bit short in terms of the articulation. Like I mentioned, I would have appreciated different hands besides this, the splayed out hands. It would have been nice if we had, at least one fist. Yeah, it looks great. So since we're on the subject of Swamp Thing, so when I think of like the more recent iterations of Swamp Thing, here's Swamp Thing from some years back. This was during, I believe, New 52. And one of the stark differences between the New 52 Swamp Thing versus this Rebirth Swamp Thing is that there's certain periods of time where New 52 Swamp Thing kind of had like the giant antlers on his head. And for me, I didn't like that look. I thought it looked weird. And Swamp Thing, he could create leaves. He could sprout leaves out of his back. So not leaves. He could sprout wings out of his back. And I don't know. This was kind of a unique look. And they even made an action figure of this guy too. It was released by DC Collectibles. And as you can see here, they did a great job of recreating this guy. And then I think after that they released, DC Collectibles released another Swamp Thing figure. Now these were deluxe figures, and I believe this one came in at maybe 10 inches. So I think this is like this figure here might have been like an inch shorter than this guy. And as you can see here, this one's sculpted really well also, but it's nowhere near the level of this. This is amazing. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, like I have a sentimental attachment to the character Swamp Thing. And here it is. This is the Swamp Thing figure I had in my childhood. It's pretty old by now. I believe this came out maybe in the late 80s or maybe very, very early 90s. I want to say it was produced by Kenner. And this Swamp Thing, it's nowhere near as detailed as this. But the one thing about this Swamp Thing that kind of like feels a little bit more OG to like the old school original character design is that at least the way some artists interpreted Swamp Thing back like in the 70s and 80s is that his head would kind of like slope and like kind of slope into his shoulders like this. Where here it's a very distinct break where his head, his shoulders. Whereas this one, it kind of felt more like this one piece. It's almost like it's kind of like the Juggernaut. You know how the Juggernaut has that giant helmet, and it kind of like this conforms to his shoulders, and it's kind of like this one giant contour. That's what the some of the versions of the OG Swamp Thing kind of had. It kind of looked like, not that he was hunched over, but his head would kind of just like seamlessly blend into his shoulders. And for me, that felt a little bit more organic for a creature like this. It's kind of like a Swamp Thing. The minute he kind of comes out from like submerges underneath the waters and he comes out, everything just kind of like flows down his like top of his head over his shoulders. And this figure had a fun gimmick too. I thought it was kind of silly even back then, but it's just neat. So this, I want to see, there might have been commercials on TV for this toy also. So the way this guy worked is that he'd break apart, you'd pull on his leg, and he's held together by strings. So you could put this figure like on the ground, and the idea was, it's very silly. The idea was that when he's broken up like this, is that you're not supposed to be able to see him. It's almost like a camouflage, and he's kind of like supposedly blended in with like the vegetation and the grass. But then the minute you press this button on the back, let me do it right here. It pulls all the pieces and they snap back together. So that's kind of like the gimmick. It was kind of like, let's pretend that, you don't see Swamp Thing. He's hiding in the jungle or in the swamps, and this, for some odd reason, they thought kids would like think this is like brilliant. Like, oh, where's Swamp Thing? I don't see him. You know, he's hidden away in the grass. Then the minute you press the button right here, and then all the pieces just, you know, throw back together. One figure I kind of wish that I had on hand with me right now was the Mattel Masters of the Universe Revelation Mossman, because Mossman's a very Swamp Thing-like character, and I should have brought it with me because, you know, they're very similar in their designs. You know, they're both made of like their fruits and vegetables, you know, all vegetation. Oh yeah, this was the weapon that came with this guy. It's kind of like a bazooka, but it was made of like bark and like a tree trunk. You could hold it in his hand, and then he would shoot this like vine missile. So yeah, this is my childhood Swamp Thing figure, and I love it. It's like, it's kind of silly, but in some ways it's very awesome. And since we're on the subject of like other characters made of vegetation, like I said, I wish I brought my Mossman figure with me, but I forgot to. But I do have these. So on the opposite end of the world, we have Marvel Comics and their version of like the Swamp Monster character. And we have two different versions of Man-Thing. Alright, so it's almost like we're building up this little family of like vegetable people. We have over here, I believe this is the original Toy Biz figure from way back in the day. This one's copywritten 2005. So this is a figure that's about 16 years old. It's one of the older, like, OG Marvel Legends from a long, long time ago. So 2005, I believe that's when Revenge of the Sith came out. So yeah, this was the Toy Biz Man-Thing. And this was the Man-Thing Marvel Legends produced by Hasbro. This was a Build-A-Figure. I want to say this came out maybe 2 or 3 years ago, if not longer than that. He belonged to that wave of Daredevil Netflix Marvel Legends figures. I think there was Jessica Jones, there was Luke Cage, there was Daredevil, I think there was Comic Book Bullseye and Comic Book Blade. So I believe he was from that assortment. So this was a Build-A-Figure. And it's nuts, because I remember at the time I thought this was amazing. You know, I thought the sculpting on this was beautiful, and in all honesty, I thought the McFarlane Swamp Thing would borderline somewhere roughly like around this guy's size. But this guy here, he easily puts this one to shame. Same with this guy over here. So yeah, this is a great action figure. I might review these in another video. I'm looking at them right now. They're kind of neat. I haven't handled them in quite some time. So yeah, maybe in the future I'll do a review on these two guys. Alright, so let's talk numbers here. Alright, how would I rate this guy? On a scale of 1 to 10. For me, I can't just give it one solid overall rating. For me, let's just break it up into separate things. So, paint application, for me, an easy 10. You know, he's not entirely green. There's different shades of green on him. There's a lot of highlighting, a lot of shading involved. So for that, you know, I think it's a perfect 10. In terms of the sculpting, perfect 10. You know, the amount of work and detail, you know, to create this vegetative look with all the foliage and the moss and the vines and the leaves. You know, it's awesome. Does not disappoint. Easy 10. The articulation, this is where it's going to hurt the figure. For me, the articulation's, you know, roughly a 7 to 7.5. You know, it's, for some reason, I'd want something like this to be a little bit more articulated, but it's a giant figure. And, you know, the fact that he has these butterfly ball-socketed joints, but they don't want to move, you know, it's very, unless mine is just really tight, you know, it's not offering that much extended range of motion, or at least on my figure, unless it's just stuck, as you can see there. So that's kind of disappointing. His elbows, it looks like they're only single jointed, I think. And if they might be also elbow swiveled, but if it is, it's very tight. Likewise, he has a bicep cut, but on one arm it doesn't want to move at all, so it might be a case of stuck joints, or I don't know. You know, he has a break right here, but again, you know, if this is supposed to provide an ab crunch, it's not moving on my figure. So yeah, I mean, I'm slightly disappointed in the articulation, but at the same time, I'm just so overly impressed by the figure overall. So, do you need this figure in your collection? It depends. Like, if you feel like, you know, you're good on just like the, you know, top AAA tier characters like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, you might not necessarily feel the need to get this action figure. If you're just a fan of McFarlane toys in general, I would say it's a must purchase just because what this figure represents. You know, it's kind of a major feat in terms of, you know, the sculpting and the paint application and detail. You know, it's very rarely that we get an action figure this hyper detailed, and I think, you know, this is like this can easily be a great centerpiece to any McFarlane Toys collection. You know, if you're a comic book fan, you know, chances are you're probably gonna want this just because it's Swamp Thing. Yeah, this is an impressive figure. This is definitely a figure that if you had displayed on your shelves, that if you had like non-toy, non-comic book people in your house and you're checking out your collection, this is something that would definitely grab their eye. Just because of the size of it, just because of how unique it looks. Yeah, this guy is a win all around. Very impressive. Alright, so let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for your continued likes, comments, and support. It means a lot to me. I've been doing this. I've had a YouTube channel forever, but I haven't really started actively, you know, uploading videos on a regular basis until this past February. So it's nice that within a short period of time, you know, I've got to connect with a lot of people. I've built up, you know, a slightly small user base of like regular viewers, and I appreciate all the time and effort that, you know, you guys, you know, because I know it takes some time out to watch videos, so I'm very grateful for that, because there's so much on like social media and YouTube that it's kind of hard sometimes to like devote your time to like watching videos. But if you're one of those guys that, or gals, that tune in regularly to watch my videos, know that I'm very appreciative of that. It means a lot. Alright, so with that being said, take care of yourself, be safe, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll talk to you later. Later.